Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! My name is Sam, by the way. I'm 17. And my parents are pretty chill most of the time. We live next door to our beloved Karen. You know, the kind of neighbor who complains about everything? Yeah, that's her. So this whole thing began when our old fence started falling apart. Dad decided it was time for a new one. He's a do-it-yourself kind of guy, so he was all excited measuring stuff and planning. And that's when Karen started her drama. One evening we were all in the backyard and Dad was showing us his fence plan. And that's when we heard Karen's voice, sharp like she always sounds when she's about to complain. "Tom, that fence better not cross into my property." Dad tells her, "Don't worry, Karen. I've measured everything. It's all on our side." But Karen wasn't having it. "I'll be watching." She warned and stomped back into her house. Fast forward a few weeks and the new fence was up. It looked pretty good and Dad was proud of it. We thought that was the end of it, but nope, not even close. One afternoon I was chilling in my room when I heard raised voices from outside. Peeking through the window, I saw Karen in our yard having a go at my dad again. "This fence is 2 inches onto my property. I know my rights, Tom." Dad replied. "Karen, we've been over this. I followed the property line exactly." And that's when Mom joined in. "Karen, maybe you're mistaken. We can have someone check if you want." "I don't need anyone to tell me where my property is. Mark my words. Tom, you'll regret this," she yelled and then stormed off. The next few weeks were quiet, but you could feel the tension. I'd see Karen sometimes staring at the fence with this weird look on her face. But before we jump into the night where it all went to hell, like literally, you gotta know about the other stuff that stirred the pot. This is like the prequel to the big showdown from what I believe. I was helping out Dad in the garden one day. We were planting some new flowers, trying to make the yard look nice. Then we heard Karen talking to our neighbor across the street. "Can you believe they are trying to put up that fence without even consulting me? And what's with that eyesore garden of theirs?" Dad overhears this and rolls his eye. He tells me, "Ignore her, Sam." But then she says something that gets under Dad's skin. "And it's not just the fence. Their good-for-nothing of a son is always playing his music so loud. It's so disruptive." Dad's usually a cool guy, but this time he couldn't let it slide. He stands up, dusts off his hand, and walks over to the fence. "Excuse me, ladies. I couldn't help but overhear." Karen's voice goes all sweet, which is totally fake. "Oh, Tom, we were just chatting. Neighborhood stuff, you know?" Dad's not buying it. "Look, Karen, if you have issues with our fence or Sam's music, why not talk to us directly?" Karen shrugs. "Just making conversation, Tom. But since you're here, that fence is still a problem for me." Dad sighs. "Karen, we've been through this. The fence is fine. And Sam will keep his music down, right, Sam?" I nod from behind Dad. "Yeah, sure, no problem." Fast forward a few weeks and things seem calm, but it's like the calm before the storm. You can feel something's about to go down. After that, things kinda escalated to a whole new level at the community meeting. Yeah, our neighborhood sometimes has these meetings, usually for boring stuff, but this one, total chaos. It was a Tuesday night and the meeting was at our neighbor's house across the street. He's got this big living room, perfect for the whole neighborhood to cram into. So I'm hanging at the back trying to be invisible. The room's buzzing with chatter and then Karen walks in. You could literally feel the room tense up. Our neighbor, trying to be the good host, starts the meeting. "Alright everyone, let's get started. We're here to discuss some neighborhood issues," and he didn't even get to finish. Karen stands up and cuts him off. "I want to talk about the Johnson's new fence." Dad sighs, and I'm thinking, here we go again. But Dad's calm. He stands up. "Karen, we've been over this. The fence is on our property." Karen's all red-faced, pointing a finger at Dad. "It's not just that. It's a symbol of how this neighborhood is going downhill. And let's not forget Sam's loud music." Our host neighbor tries to get things back on track. "Okay, folks, let's keep it civil. We're here to find solutions, not argue." But it's like Karen was on a mission. She starts ranting about everything: the fence, my music, even how she thinks someone else's cat is a nuisance. People start arguing back, and it's like a shouting match. Mom's trying to calm things down, Dad's defending our family, and I'm just wishing I was anywhere but here. What am I even doing here in the first place? Beats me. Guess I had nothing better to do at this point. I space out for a moment, then out of nowhere, I hear Karen yell, "Everything I'm saying is valid. This neighborhood needs to change. Starting with the Johnsons." And that's when Dad says something that totally surprises me. He's usually the peacekeeper, but he looked Karen straight in the eyes and said, "Karen, it's not the neighborhood that needs to change. It's your attitude." Karen's face turned a shade of red I didn't know existed. Then she stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. After she left, the meeting kind of fell apart. Some people were whispering, others were just shaking their heads. Our host neighbor tried to wrap things up, but it was pointless. On the walk home, Dad was quiet and looked slightly worried. Then it was a few nights after the meeting, and I was up late again, gaming in my room. My window was open because of the heat, and I started smelling something weird. At first, I thought it was just some barbecue gone wrong, but then the smell got stronger, and it was definitely not barbecue. I looked out the window and saw orange flames licking up the side of our new fence. I froze for a second like, is this actually happening? Then I snapped into action. Fire! Fire! I yelled, running downstairs. Mom and Dad were already up, probably smelled the smoke too. We all bolted outside and there it was, our fence just burning. And guess who was standing there with a gas can in her hand? Yep, it was Karen. Dad was furious. "Karen, what have you done?" Karen, with this wild look in her eyes, just yelled back, "Your fence was on my property." While Dad and Karen were shouting, I grabbed the garden hose and started spraying the fence, trying to keep the fire from spreading to the house. The neighbors started coming out, seeing the commotion. Our neighbor across the street in his pajamas was like, "What in the world?" But here is the craziest part. While me and my dad trying to fight out this fire, Karen just stands there watching it burn. Just then, it happens. We hear a loud bang, like a gunshot. We all hit the deck. I'm thinking, is this really happening now? Turns out Mom had followed us out with Dad's old shotgun. She's standing on a porch, looking like a total badass but also super freaked out. "Stay away from my family," she shouts, aiming the gun at Karen. But it's dark and Mom's not exactly a sharpshooter. Karen screams, drops to the ground and covers her ear. The shot missed her, thankfully. Mom just meant to scare her, not hurt her, I guess. Dad's up now and rushes over to Mom. "Honey, put the gun down, it's okay." Karen starts screaming at Mom. "You think you can just shoot at me and get away with it?" Dad tries to be reasonable. "Karen, no one was trying to shoot you. It was a warning shot." But Karen's not listening. She's just ranting and raving. Then out of nowhere, she lunges at Dad, like she's gonna hit him or something. And that's when Mom loses it. She runs up and delivers a nasty left hook right across poor Karen's face. Right across poor Karen's face, followed by a loud, "I said, stay away from my family." Damn. Didn't know Mom can do that. I will never get on the wrong side of that woman, ever. Karen falls down, then gets up and charges at Mom. And before we know it, they are in a full-blown fight. Dad and Karen's husband are trying to break it up. I'm standing there like, should I jump in? But before I can even move, the neighbors come running over and everyone's trying to pull them apart. The police, firefighters, and EMTs show up. Karen gets handcuffed and taken away. The fire gets contained and the EMTs tend to us. Karen's husband is trying to talk to the cops like, please, she's just unstable. But they are not having it. Karen's still yelling, even as they put her in the police car. After the cops leave, everyone's kind of standing around, not sure what to do. Dad's checking if Mom's okay, and she's just shaking her head. I can't believe it came to this. The neighbors start to go back to their houses, and we go inside. We're all just processing what happened. A couple of weeks after Karen got arrested, we heard she was going to court. This whole neighborhood was talking about it. Some felt bad for her, but most were like, she needs to pay for what she did. On the evening, we're all sitting around the dinner table and Dad brings up the court thing. Karen's trial is next week. I'm just poking at my food, thinking about how wild it's been. I ask, do you think she'll get jail time? Bet shrugs. Well, setting fire to private property? That's serious. Fast forward to the trial day, I didn't go, but Dad did. He wanted to see it through, I guess. I'm waiting at home, kinda anxious to know what happens. Dad comes back in the afternoon. We all gather around like it's story time or something. So what happened? Mom asks. Dad takes a deep breath. Well, Karen pleaded guilty. She received 5 years in prison, among other things. Later, I'm out front and our neighbor across the street walks by with her cat. Heard about Karen. Seems fair, don't you think? I nod. Yeah, I guess. Just hope she learned something from it. I do too. And that's it. That's the story of our neighborhood and offense. It started with a dispute, escalated into something crazy, but ended with us coming together. Thanks for following along with my story. And here is to new beginnings and sturdy fences. The subject of the story is my mother. For the sake of the story, I will call her Amber. She's in her late 70s and works for a women's clothing store, which caters specifically to older clientele. She's been working for some particular company for some 20 years now. The manager of the store is the absolute epitome of a Karen. So let's call her Karen. Extremely entitled, short-haired, choppy, cheats on her husband, and a blatant backstabber. Because the store is staffed by mostly older women, clicks tend to form. It's basically high school. Yes, older women can be that bitty. And naturally, Karen has her own cronies. During periods where no one is in the store, there also tends to be a ton of gossip. This is important for later. The assistant manager, let's call her Jackie, is also one of Karen's lackeys, and she has her head way up Karen's butt. If Karen does something, then Jackie isn't far behind, and so on. Amber is a bit of a ball buster, and she has zero tolerance for garbage in her personal life. Over the years, she has tried to stay impartial when it comes to her work, however, because to her, it's all about professionalism. She also has empathy, which is something that seems to be in short supply with these other women. It also helps that she has been the top seller for her district for some 10 years running, despite working part-time. Karen and Jackie absolutely hate her for it. So much so that Karen routinely schedules her for hours which are not especially good. Despite this, though, Amber still has her loyal clientele and she always comes out on top against the other sales associates in total sales almost every quarter. As expected, this naturally feeds the horrible feedback loop with Karen and Jackie. When COVID hit, the company decided to cut all commission for sales associates. The commission was one of the main reasons why Amber endured Karen and Jackie's nonsense. While she only made slightly above the state's minimum wage with a commission, she could double or even triple that amount on good days. According to her, no other retailer in the area offers this kind of system, and it's pretty unlikely that the company will reinstate it even after COVID ends. Along with the cut in wages, the store was also forced to decrease the amount of hours that they could offer to their associates. Karen took this as a way to essentially bar Amber from working at the store. While other associates were getting 8 to 10 hours a week, Amber would see maybe 6 if she was lucky, and they would be during times of low customer traffic. Karen could get away with this because the district manager is also in her bucket. Along with the reduced hours and the removal of commissions, the store naturally had a mandatory mask policy for all the employees and customers. Karen and her lackeys would often complain and whine about how unnecessary this was, because according to them, COVID is a hoax, and wearing masks makes you subservient to the government. There were a few incidents where Karen would let people without masks into the store despite the state and the company mandates. Amber refused to rock the boat, however, so when this would happen, she would go into the back of the store and stay as far away from these people as possible. During this period in time, a friend of the family and good friend of Amber's passed away due to complications from COVID. The funeral was set for a time when Amber was scheduled to work, so she called out that day. Karen and Jackie attacked Amber and the deceased, claiming that she must have caught the flu or been in bad health, and that Amber was feeding into the lie. Oh, how nice it must be to live such a privileged life. Not long after, a few of the store's loyal clients also passed away from COVID, and still Karen and Jackie, along with their groupies, maintained their narrative in the most vindictive way possible. Every time someone died, it must have been because of bad life choices or bad health. Never was it attributed to the global pandemic that was claiming thousands of people a day, according to Karen and her groupies. And always when Amber decided to go to the services or support the deceased in any way, she would hear snide remarks regarding how she was supporting a hoax. I guess sympathy is not really a thing for these people. Some of these customers were regulars who had been coming to that particular store for years, and still none of the groupies would relent on these points. Recently, the restrictions have started to lift and many of the clientele and employees have gotten their vaccines. This includes submitting paperwork to show that you have indeed obtained the vaccine or a note from a doctor explaining why you couldn't have one. Not Karen nor Jackie though. To them, getting the vaccine would be like pumping poison into their veins. Instead, they decided to use fake COVID white cards with their information, effectively forging the documents. Amber, however, has suggested multiple times that they just get the vaccines because it's something that is mandated by the company. All employees must get vaccines when they are available. And given that almost all the employees are above the age of 60, they have been eligible for the shots for months now. Recently, Amber had an emotional conversation directly with Karen where she expressed her concern for her. "I just want you and your family to be safe, so please get the vaccine." Karen responded with her normal snide attitude, of course. A few days later, however, Karen sent a text message mentioning that she had finally got the vaccine. She didn't. Amber replied that it was great and that she was happy for her. Karen just replied with a gif of some guy throwing up the middle finger. This was the beginning of the end for Amber. The incident. During one of her shifts, Amber overheard Karen and Jackie discussing how Amber was a moron and a sheep who bought the story about how Karen had taken the vaccine. During that same shift, Amber was working with a customer in the back and some woman came into the store and stole a couple items of clothing, probably totaling out to be $100 at most. Now, it's company policy that during all shifts, there always be at least 2 employees in the store, and during this particular stretch of time, Jackie was the only other person in the store. According to video cameras, Jackie was up in the front of the store, playing with her phone, when this woman came in. Normally, if someone steals items from the store, the protocol is to avoid confronting them and instead just call security after they have left the store. This is mainly to avoid lawsuits and to protect the employees should these people choose to get violent. It has happened in the past. That evening, Amber received a call from Karen telling her that she was on probation pending an investigation for allowing this woman to steal from the store. Given the company's policy regarding theft, this really made no sense. It was at this point that Amber truly decided she had had enough. Eventually, this probation led to Amber's dismissal, and the official reasoning was fairly vague. The revenge. One thing that I forgot to mention, a few years ago Amber asked me to teach her how to record things on her phone, and luckily we live in a single consent state. As such, Amber had recordings of these women backstabbing her and gossiping about rather scandalous things dating back for years. She had gathered quite a collection because you never know when you need to cover your own butt. Over the years, Amber has gone to HR to no real avail, even with her recordings. Whether it be because they are also in the pockets of Karen or that they just don't care remains to be seen. The HR department works directly under the district manager. Amber is also very good at keeping any paperwork and proof of these visits, including some recordings. She also recorded the call where she was fired. Amber has a ton of very loyal clients who were pretty distraught when they learned of her dismissal. One client in particular runs a column at one of the major newspapers for the nearby city. We will call her Casey. Since Amber was a part-time worker, she didn't really have much of a leg to stand on legally when it came to claiming a wrongful dismissal claim by legal means. However, that didn't mean that she didn't have any kind of recourse. She decided to attack the problem from multiple fronts. Amber compiled some of the greatest hits from her recording collection and had me email them off to the corporate offices of the company, specifically the CEO, CTO, and basically every member of the board of directors. I fired a couple bursts off to anyone who had any power that I could find. Along with those recordings, she wrote an email about how Karen, Jackie, and their group of sheep all refused to get vaccines and had falsified their vaccine documents to pass the company standards. Casey then put Amber in touch with a columnist for the newspaper, and they got copies of the recordings, the text messages, and the dismissal phone call. They also did an interview which was for an article and a TV slot on the local news. Amber discussed the commission cuts, clear favoritism, lack of any intervention by HR, forged documents, company policy, fee incidents, and so on. Basically, anything relevant to paint these women in a terrible light. Among some of these recordings were bits of gossip that included conversations regarding Karen's various boyfriends over the years. She was married. Amber also wrote an anonymous email to the husband that included some of these recordings. The fallout. Crap hit the fan pretty fast, as you can probably imagine. Karen, Jackie, the district manager, and a couple of the groupies were immediately fired and put under investigation for forging documents. While forging a vaccine card isn't really something too serious, it could lead to some pretty hefty fines. There is no specific law against forging the vaccine white cards. However, because the white cards contain the government seal, well, you can just imagine how illegal that might be. Let's just say the FBI has stepped in on this one. One of the recordings featured Karen admitting to using forged cards. After the article and TV slot ran on the local news, the CEO reached out to Amber to formally apologize for the behavior of HR, the district manager, Karen, and Jackie. She even went so far as to offer Amber a raise, but Amber declined because she found a job that actually paid a fair wage and let her work on her own time. The real witch of it for the CEO and the board was the fact that their employees were breaking the company policy for a store that exclusively catered to older women regarding a virus that tends to kill older people. They caught some heavy public backlash. Karen's husband seems to have separated from her after finding out about her infidelity. Whether or not this will lead to a divorce remains to be seen. The best part for Amber, many of her clients start to come into her new store, and again, she's killing it as one of the best sales associates.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.